No, not the motivation.
Okay.
But the interview today, can you remember, are there any points that you really enjoyed about the interview today?
Yes. Well, it is what, it's not
Or did you just enjoy the entire interview because you...
Well, I did.
Because you were with
because
me?
I was spending time
Yeah.
with you. So we don't get a lot of time, we don't get time to spend with each other a lot. But the one thing, it is not just about the interview, but it is really authentically me, and that is connecting with the divine and connecting with the divinity in all of us, because I think that is what, when we move too far away from that, we start to see a lot of conflict. We don't see people as persons who we need to embrace. We see persons, and you said it in your introduction, that we see points of difference first without seeing points of commonality. And when you begin to connect with what's inside, it means that you see in everyone God's face and God's image and the image of the Almighty. And
Sometimes they make it harder, but you have to hold on.
for some persons you see it right in front, others you have to burrow a little bit more deeply. And then there are some of them, the only time you recognize the God in them is when you leave them. And you leave their presence.
When?
Oh yes, that person really
When?
had a little bit, you know. It's only after you exit, yes, I did see a little glimmer. But it would not have hit you the same. So I find that
That's funny.
that was a big one. That's
Yeah.
a big one.
That is very funny.
That's a big one for me. Another big one for me is people being ruled by fear and not doing anything about it. Because the first seeds that are planted, you've got to root it out. And the first seed is the seed of doubt. So sometimes people doubt themselves. And you take a decision and then you second guess it and then you third guess it, instead of saying, I would have put in a lot of research, I would have asked my questions, I would have talked to persons and taken the decision. If it doesn't work out, this is what I will do. If it does work out, then I press on. So we don't embrace all the potential results. We only want one result, and if we don't get that result, then we collapse. And I think it's important to embrace all the results because you can't predict. And that reduces a lot of anxiety that goes along with, will it work or will it not work? What happens if it fails? And if it fails, it means that you will learn and you will know what not to do the next time. So that's it.
And one of the things that I was thinking of that I wasn't able to, that we didn't touch on when we were talking about the empathy revolution. I'm very proud of myself
Yes,
for that.
that little phrase.
Yes, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Very global phrase.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
Yes,
That's what I
global.
felt.
It's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that it's the sort
That's
of,
the kind of
it's
thing
the title of a book.
That's the kind of thing Oprah would drop on you.
Yeah, it's the title of a book.
And she have an international seminar
Yeah.
about
But
the empathy revolution.
But it is the title of a book, and then it will make Oprah's book club,
exactly.
and then go on to be a bestseller.
Exactly.
Yes.
Am I right?
By our local author.
Yes.
By our local author,
Don't take
Trinidad.
our name because that's
Yes.
the name of my book.
Our local author, Shanna.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
The Empathy Revolution.
Exactly.
And everybody to be running together because, you know, we into this, as you said, the mindfulness. And so on.
Yeah. It's like this. So, but part of that I didn't touch on when we were doing the live interview was one of the questions. Well, I'll ask you the question now, which is, do you think that is there any practice you can think of, or do you think that there's something that persons can do to actually become more empathetic? Do you think it's something that persons can practice and become better at?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And something very simple. When you are interacting with someone, see them as you would like them to be. Not necessarily.
Grab it. Whatever one got it.
So for example, you may think somebody's quarrelsome, but don't have that in mind when you're interacting with them.
Oh my
Think
gosh.
Think of them
You
as
was on such a higher level.
it's
Oh
Sunday.
my-
It's Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
It's Sunday. It's Sunday. Catch me on a Sunday.
Oh
Like-
my gosh.
No, but really, when you're interacting with someone, don't think of themselves. Don't think of them as a quarrelsome person. Think of think of the person as someone who's peaceful and calm, and that you're getting through to them. Because when you approach them that way, that's what you're sending to them.
This is some next level psychology. This is some 5-dimension stuff here, girl.
No, it's 40 years of experience, actually.
Okay, well, all right.
40 years of experience. And as a matter of fact, we set up the state of play even before we get to the interaction.
I feel like I shouldn't even post this for free. I think people should pay to see this clip. No, this is another level. This is another level.
No, but really, think of it. If you have something in your mind about somebody, you're setting up the state of play even before you come physically in front of them. Oh my gosh, this person, oh my gosh, this is so quarrelsome. You're starting to build up all that toxic energy within you already. You started a war inside of you already, and you haven't even sat down in front of the person. You haven't even come into their presence. So can you imagine that all of your behavior is going to be wrapped around that thought that you have of that person in your mind? And can you imagine the flip side of that, where you actually, the person is naturally quarrelsome. I'm not saying that the person isn't, no? But when you think of the person as peaceful and joyful, and the person is actually listening, the person is not interrupting, you go with a different kind of spiritual dimension. There's a different spiritual dimension that you bring to that encounter. And their spirit has no choice but to respond to what is sent out to it. So when no choice. So, and when both of you end that encounter, everybody goes away thinking, oh my gosh, this didn't come to blows, verbal blows. This was so peaceful an exchange. And there's some teaching moments inside of there for each person. For the person who is the giver and the person who was the receiver. And so I think it is important that we see people as we would like them to be and behave in accordance with how we would like them to be. And then you set up a different state of play for the encounter. And you know, in the midst of all that, you're keeping yourself calm. So you're not throwing out, you're not in attack mode, and you're not prepared, and you're not set. And then the person receives a very peaceful kind of response from you. And it does not trigger their natural inclination to be aggressive or complaining or quarrelsome, because that's not what they're receiving from you. So it's amazing how much power we have in us that we have not released. We have to tap into that power.
No, I'm not even going to ask anything. You just talk. I'm just going to sit back.
Yes, we have not tapped.
Tapped into the power.
We haven't tapped. It's Sunday. Sunday. I just had a salad. That's what happens when you have a salad. That's what happens. You think that there's no fog. No, inflammation is a killer. Inflammation builds up a lot of fog, mental fog. You feel bloated. And a lot of our foods promote a lot of build-up of inflammation. Salads don't. So all that gain that you would have made throughout the week is not going to be reversed because your salad is helping to keep your system clear. No clogging. And what does that do? It sets you up for the next week. There you go.
There you go.
Salad. The power of salads.
So, the other thing that I want to be, what I was thinking of when I was thinking about a practice that can help someone develop empathy. I don't know if I would say it's a practice, but actually speaking to you, I think there's a linkage there. But that's I think part of doing interviews is finding the linkages.
Yes, and we have an acronym.
So, I think when you're talking about in seeing the person, and this is something that we touched on with Juliet as well in the interview last year, which is your beliefs and how when you repeat a thought pattern enough, it becomes embedded as a belief. And I think that's actually what you're speaking about when you say picture the person the way that you would like them to be. And so instead of cementing in your mind your belief about this person, you're actually rewiring that belief and opening yourself to the possibility that this person, while you have observed some of these behaviors in the past, it's possible for this person to evolve. So you're not trapping yourself in a particular cyclic interaction with the person.
Salad. You want a salad?
Grab it. Grab it.
Did you want a salad?
Grab it.
It's like a salad talk. Familiar like a salad. Familiarity. No, but you know what that does? It creates another pathway for a different kind of encounter. And I think that's what we're called to do. To create so many pathways that the ones that we find are blocked, we create another pathway that enables people to continue to harmonize. And the more practiced we become at that, we get to the point where we can interact with anybody.
Exactly.
Because your role now is to create a new pathway for
Exactly.
people to have an exchange. And it reminded me of a practice that I always, that's a part of me. And I always pray for animosity to be lifted away from you, so that you don't walk around with animosity. Because animosity, I think, blocks freedom, it blocks fluidity, it blocks exits, and it clogs us emotionally. Because can you imagine, when you have to remember that last week this person got you upset, and then somebody else got you upset, and somebody else did something that didn't sit well with you, so you were upset. Can you imagine that you flow, if that's not exited from your system, that is going to come and meet this week's animosity, and it's going to meet next week's animosity, and pretty soon you're just a walking ball of animosity, and that turns on you, and it begins to feed on you, and you can't think you're right. You know, it starts a wee war inside. No, really, seriously. So I always pray every single day, and again, as you said, habits, practice have to become habits. I pray for the animosity of the day to be lifted. Sometimes you may find yourself feeling animosity toward a person, and you've got to ask for that animosity toward that person to be lifted. Because then it releases you to be able to interact with people very freely. And then all of a sudden what you find happening is that people start gravitating toward you. Because again, there's nothing blocking. There's nothing blocking. I really think that we are spirits having an earthly experience. So we connect, our spirits collide before our bodies do. And when you start releasing the pathways, the spirits can flow pretty freely. Sounds a little esoteric, but I
You know, that's what we do on the Shanna channel.
yeah, but I do think that when you stop being so handcuffed to stuff that is worldly, we free ourselves to start evolving. And where's the evolution? The evolution has to be on a spiritual plane.
So I was going to speak about as I was saying, it's kind of a belief that you can get trapped into that cyclic interaction, and then when you start to break that belief down or change that belief, then you open yourself up to a new interaction. So one of the beliefs that I try to use, or one of the platforms that I try to operate from when I'm interacting with individuals, is I tell myself, even persons who I may find more difficult than others, it is not to say that I put myself on the path to have to interact with difficult persons, or persons who I may perceive to be difficult. But in interacting with everyone, I try to operate from the platform of, it's almost like pretending, imagination, that I try to imagine that if I was that person, I don't know what experience they've lived, but I try to imagine that if I'd lived the experience that they have, I would have turned out the same way. So if I meet a difficult person, I just try to imagine that perhaps circumstantially there may be things that would have
to be.
so it's kind of finding equivalence. It's kind of finding equivalence with everyone who you interact with, as opposed to maybe thinking that, you know, why can't this person, you know, I'm so peaceful, or this person is peaceful, and why can't they be like that? And I try to imagine that if I were exposed to things that maybe they would have been exposed to, maybe I would have turned out the same way. And so that puts me in a space where I'm able to find a patient place to interact with them. So that's the platform that I try to use when I interact with everyone.
And really, what you've just done is release yourself. Not release them, but you've released yourself from being connected to a limiting belief that would have limited the interaction. And I think it is so lovely when we're able to do that. I wish more persons were able to do that, where we make all kinds of assumptions about people, and we make all sorts of pronouncements about why they are this way and why can't they be different, instead of saying, I will meet you where you are, because I don't know what road you've traveled. I don't know. Maybe if I traveled your road, I might have been worse, but you've been able to hold it together. If this is the only level of scarring that you've had coming out of what you've come out of, then all power to you. And I don't think we pause enough to be able to allow that level of allowance of all of those possibilities in that little margin between the time of meeting the person and beginning to interact. In that split second, as you said, we need to allow that little margin, to allow people, for that allowance for the things about which we have no knowledge that would have gone on, the invisible part of their lives. And if we were to do a lot more of what we've just said, then we'd be a little bit more tolerant, because everybody is an iceberg. We're interacting mostly with what we cannot see. And there are lots of things that we can't see that would have shaped that individual. So we just need to remember that everybody's an iceberg.
Yeah, and that's the start of the empathy revolution.
Absolutely. Absolutely.